Hey Kipsters, I hope you're having a great day. We are going to look at another example of how the government changed in one of these south and southeastern regions, countries. So we're going to get started looking at a country called Indonesia. So the reading that we're going through, I'm just going to go ahead and read it once and you can follow along, and then we'll go through and find the answers to our questions below. Indonesia under Suharto. Indonesia served as a Dutch colony until Japanese forces took control during World War II. After the war, Indonesia gained independence and unsuccessfully experimented with several styles of government. In 1965, Major General Suharto gained power and prestige after crushing a rebellion in the capital city. Suharto used his authority as head of the army to force Indonesian leaders to make him president in 1967, a position he held until 1998. Under Suharto's leadership, the people of Indonesia endured a series of government abuses. Soldiers were stationed in every village across the nation to encourage fear of his authority. Loyal military officers replaced the civilian government and were rewarded for their support. More than 300,000 people were jailed without trial or disappeared for disagreeing with Suharto's policies. By silencing his enemies, Suharto maintained power for over 20 years. The government was ranked as one of the most corrupt in the world, with Suharto using Indonesia's vast natural resources to make himself a multi-billionaire. In 1998, an economic crisis forced Suharto to step down from power. The Indonesian government has since adopted reforms including actions to strengthen the Indonesian constitution and give the people a voice in government. In 2004, the nation held its first presidential elections. Suharto died in 2008. Okay, so we've read through our piece of information once, and now we're going to go through and read to find our questions. So the three things that we're looking for is: how has the government of Indonesia changed from the leadership of Suharto to today? What is the difference between Suharto's government and Indonesia's government today? And which of the following best explains why Suharto acted to limit the human rights of his enemies? Let's start with our first one. How has the government of Indonesia changed from the leadership of Suharto today? So I'm going to go ahead and look and underline anything that talks about the leadership of Suharto. So I'm going to start over here where it says in 1965, Major General Suharto gained power and prestige after crushing a rebellion in the capital city. Now I'm going to look for his leadership. Suharto used his authority, that talks about the leadership or his importance as head of the army, to force Indonesian leaders to make him president. Okay, so he used force on Indonesian leaders to make him president. So I'm going to underline that. A position he held until 1998. Under Suharto's leadership, so this is where another place we're starting to see his leadership, the people of Indonesia endured a series of government abuses. So I'm going to underline the word abuses. You go ahead and underline these things as well in your paper. I'm going to also put the number 1 next to it, telling me that it's going to answer my question number 1. Soldiers were stationed in every village across the nation to encourage fear of his authority. So he also made people fear his authority through soldiers. Loyal military officers replaced the civilian government and were rewarded for their support. More than 3,000 people were jailed. Okay, so I know that he put people in jail. without trial or disappearing for disagreeing with Suharto's policies. By silencing his enemies, Suharto maintained power for over 20 years. The government was ranked as one of the most corrupt in the world. Okay, so he also silenced his enemies. I don't just want to look at the things that he did. I want to look at how it's different today. So under his government, he forced leaders to make him president. He abused his power. He used the government to make his people fearful. He put 300,000 people in jail, and he silenced his enemies, which I'm going to guess means he killed the people that disagreed with him. Okay. Today, in 1998 until today, an economic crisis forced Suharto to step down from power. The Indonesian government has since adopted reforms, including actions to strengthen Indonesian constitution. So I see that today they have an Indonesian constitution, and give the people a voice. Okay, so the people have a say in government. In 2004, the nation held its first presidential elections. Suharto died in 2008. So now I know that they have presidential elections, which means they can vote. So in my number one, I'm going to mention that under Suharto, people were dying and anybody who disagreed with him were put in jail. It sounds a lot like a dictatorship. But today, it sounds like they have a constitution and that people can vote. So under question number one, I'm going to go ahead and mention that under Suharto, there was a lot of abuse and people didn't have a say and people were killed and put in jail. But today, they have a say and they can vote. Let's get started with number two. Make sure you're underlining where I am as well. What's the difference between Suharto's government and Indonesia's government today? So we kind of already answered that question with the last one. So if we remember, under his government, it sounds a lot like a dictatorship. Anybody who disagreed with him were put in jail, and a lot of them, they didn't have a trial, right? And he silenced his enemies. So if they disagreed with him, he would kill them. Whereas today, it sounds a lot more like a democracy or a constitutional government where they have a constitution and presidential elections. So if we turn back to number one, how has the government of Indonesia changed from the leadership of Suharto? So it looks like in that time, the leadership under him was very abusive, whereas today people have a say. And then the government, it looks like, went from a dictatorship to something much closer to a democracy or a constitutional government where the people have a voice. And then number three, which of the following best explains why Suharto acted to limit the human rights of his enemies? So I'm going to look for this phrase right here, limit the human rights of his enemies, or something close to it. So I'm going to start down here. I know it was talking about where people were put in jail. So we're going to look at an example down here. More than 300,000 people were jailed without trial. So that seems like it's a human right that was limited. Or disappeared for disagreeing with Suharto's policies. By silencing his enemies, remember silencing means killing, so he's silencing or limiting the human rights of his enemies, Suharto maintained power for over 20 years. So by limiting their rights, what was Suharto able to do? He was able to maintain power for over 20 years. So it sounds like by limiting the human rights of his enemies, he was able to keep control of his country, and the government was ranked as one of the most corrupt in the world, with Suharto using Indonesia's vast natural resources to make himself a multi-billionaire. Sounds like he was also able to make himself a lot of money. So to keep his power and also to make himself a lot of money. That's all for today, Kipsters. Make sure that you go through and you underline all the things that we looked at, and that you're putting the numbers next to him to help you answer which question it was. Have a great day, and make sure you're going back and reading again if you need to.